Besides Doctor Who, the other British sci-fi series that I discovered for myself back in my youth watching PBS was Blake's 7, which was created by Terry Nation, who, of course, came up with the dialects for Doctor Who and all that. And the era of it is all very similar, and a lot of times, especially these days with shared universes and whatnot, and crossovers, it wouldn't take much out of it if the Doctor appeared in an episode, because it's the kind of world he would stumble into. The TARDIS arrives, it's on the Liberator, and there's a little problem. They deal with it. Now these days they would ruin it, and probably. The Liberator was created by, I don't know, the Cybermen or something along those lines. But, who cares if they did? There was been talk of a revival, and I think an American production company bought the license to it for a time, or were looking at it, and I don't know how long they have. It seems like that was a while ago, so it may lapse by now. I don't know. It would probably not be all that great, because if there's a way to find out a surefire thing to be ruined, these days a lot of people will. There are some exceptions, but it's certainly a good narrative to follow, and some of it's rather simplistic. You could make that work, but there's been other elements, other sci-fi shows that have done similar things with Farscape and Firefly and that sort of thing. But it could still make it. But in today's hyper-political world, just everything is. I was going to say, if you sneeze, it's bleeding. It is. You sneeze because of the outbreak, So it would probably be reduced to garbage. It would look fantastic. The effects would be really great, but the scripts would just be awful. So I don't know. But anyway, so. Like I don't have enough old shows to review, including new ones, I kept thinking about it, so I went ahead and looked back at Blake 7. It's been a while since I watched it. A lot of times I recall, I always thought Doctor Who was superior to it. In a lot of ways, that's still true. But Blake's, I have new respect for it, looking back. So I rewatched the first 2 episodes, and that's how I'll do it, because the time constraints being what they are, and I'm way behind on Clone Wars, so I'm going to have to just bundle a bunch of that together and do it that way. But anyway, so Blake 7, it opens up, and it's clearly taking a lot from Orwellian aspects, and you have this guy who apparently was a revolutionary leader, and rather than just executing him, the state, the Federation here, so it's an evil Federation, not like Star Trek. This is the mirror universe. So they take Blake and they brainwash him to being a docile citizen. In a lot of scenes, you see people kind of lumbering about in this society they've set up, which is all contained within this giant dome structure on the earth, and people rarely go outside. And in fact, it's a crime to do so, and all this sort of thing. So it's all very Big Brother type atmosphere there. And then there's this woman who leads him on, and you can see today it would have been that he had a romantic interest in this woman, but then she kisses another guy, so it's like, Blake, and he's like, he was only interested in the girl. But she's leading him back to the revolution. And they try to get him to remember. They get wiped out by the authorities. Blake is arrested, and they send him back to more conditioning, But this time around, I suspect obviously it didn't take. And they decide to trump up some charges and ruin his reputation and send him off to a penal colony on some distant planet. And that's where it ends up. He has a lawyer or an advocate that they assign to him, and they tell him to do a good job because they want it to look good. And the lawyer has no idea about the corruption of the state, and looks into Blake's story, goes and finds the bodies of the revolutionaries that they massacred all this type of stuff. And then, of course, they get murdered. And Blake, meanwhile, is sitting on the shuttle, hoping they come back in time to prevent him from being exiled to the prison planet. But no, too late. It takes off because he doesn't know his lawyers are dead. And off he goes. And it's not that bad. I mean, it's the effects of the times and all that sort of stuff. But it narratively and conceptually, it works pretty good. And he's introduced to the characters who will become part of the cast. There's this hot smoking blonde who's apparently a smuggler. And then the comic relief character of Villa, who well, he's the comic relief. He's a thief. He's already trying to rob Blake while he's unconscious and all this sort of, or asleep, whatever. Well, unconscious, they knocked him out, and all that. So he gets on the shuttle, and already one of the taskmasters on the ship has decided Blake's a troublemaker, so he puts him in restraints and all this sort of stuff, and tells him to look out the window at Earth, take a good long look, Blake, and you'll never see that again. And then the ending is just, no, I'm going back. Just like that. That's how the episode, The Way Back. Now, The Way Back doesn't respond to he's going to get back to Earth. No, The Way Back responds to him recovering who he really is. He comes across as rather weak and a bit of a lost guy at the outset, and then by the end of the episode, and of course certainly the second episode, he's his heroic self. And he's bent on getting revenge against the state and what they've done. He realizes they've killed his family and all that. They told him, no, they're fine. They're on another planet. And he gets messages from them, but it's all fake. All that sort of thing. And so he's just burning with a desire for revenge against the state and all that stuff. In reality, I mean, the story of what they did, I had forgotten this when I rewatched it. I for some reason, I worked it in my head that they framed him for the massacre that happened to the revolutionaries, and that was the crime he was punished for, and ruining his name so that the movement would be disillusioned because their leader was, ruined. No, they charge him with pedophilia. Tone is like, good Lord. And I mean, look, that would do it. If you want to ruin someone, yeah. That would ruin somebody. So that's the charges, rather than just outright killing him because they figured they're just so concerned with him being a martyr. But in reality, they probably would have been better off just killing him. They killed everybody else, so he's on the ship at the end, and it's over. And he says, "No, I'm going to come back." It's very quick, and that's it. So it ends on that one. The next episode is where this stuff really starts to cook here, and there's a bit of mystery, and it gets more intriguing. So he's already working on an escape plan. He's showing aspects that he is a leader. He understands the talents of some of the criminals he's locked up with. So beyond Jenna and Villa, we discover Avon. Now, not anything to do with the cosmetic company, but he becomes the most important character of the series. And but basically he's this technical genius, and he's been committing crimes and stealing and whatnot, and is already that they realize that they're probably just going to kill all the prisoners and have him do the cover-up technically. But then, of course, he also knows that the crew would end up killing him too to cover this up. Whether or not that really was the plot, I mean, it seems to be some leeway there where Avon suspects it would be. But the captain of the ship seems to be more or less an honorable guy. His second in command, on the other hand, is quite the psychopath. And we get a lot of evidence of that. So they pull off their plan. They try to take over the ship, and they almost succeed. But, of course, the psychopath threatens to massacre everybody, so Blake surrenders. Meanwhile, the ship is discovering some strange goings-on in distant space on their course, and there apparently is some sort of star battle going on with alien spaceships that they're not familiar with. And eventually they come across one of the ships that appears to have been abandoned, and this, of course, was the Liberator, and it's very mysterious. He sends some crewmen over to investigate. They figure they'll get the salvage rights and they'll become wealthy men because of this rather extremely large spaceship and, you know, all these weird technology that must be available in it. But his crew go over and something happens to them and they all die screaming. And so they decide, well, let's just send Blake and a few others over there and see if they can figure it out for us, and then we can get the salvage rights. So Blake and Avon and Jenna go across, and they encounter some kind of psychic attack by the ship. But apparently, because, and this is the only way to make this work, is that because of Blake's constant conditioning, he was able to overcome it, and he saves the other two. And now the ship is theirs. So they've got this incredible super ship, and they take off with it. And Raker was the sub-commander guy, the psychopath. He's coming across and saying, hey, yeah, Blake, I don't trust him. He's staying too long in there. So he charges over through this little tube they've set up between the ships. And, well, they take off. And he gets sucked out into space. And for the times of what they have to do, they do it pretty damn good as he gets sucked out. And good riddance to that bastard. Now, when you see the actor, you'll recognize him. I've got to do my review of Face of Evil. He plays a pivotal role in that episode of Doctor Who where Leela is introduced. So you'll see this guy. He's one of those guys, and all shows are like this. There's current actors that appear over and over again in different TV shows. It's like Star Trek people showing up in Gunsmoke. You know, same thing. It's just the way it goes. But he does very well in here, playing pretty much a sleazy and really a psychopath. Yeah, more so than in Doctor Who. But anyway, and so now they've got the ship, and of course, Blake wants to go and rescue the other prisoners. Of course, Avon would rather just split and look for money and all that. But that's who Blake is, and now he's got a very powerful weapon, and he's brimming with all kinds of ideas about how he can get his justice and really, in a lot of ways, revenge against the overlords of the Federation. And so there we are. And that one was called Spacefall. And those were the two episodes, and really watching them together, I think, is best, as it really sets up the whole tone for the series. And about who Blake is and what these characters are all about. So, hey, I really enjoyed it more than I expected. I have more respect for the series than I originally did. I think maybe I was just more into Doctor Who than the other one, and I thought this was just kind of a knockoff of Star Wars and Star Trek combined and that sort of thing, and borrowing from George Orwell. But all of that's kind of true, but at the same time, doesn't matter. It's pretty good in its own right, and it's not a cheap ripoff in that respect at all. I mean, compared to a lot of stuff I could mention today, which is, but, so yeah, Blake 7, check it out. It's a pretty good little romp there. And, I'll be back with more reviews of future episodes. Oh, yes. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores and have plenty of goodies for you. You know, hats, mugs, stickers, posters, all that goody stuff. Plus, you can head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book Night Night. Oh, yeah. Plus, you can also catch my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, over at radiomisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on my channel at BitChute. That's the Mr Nailsin channel on BitChute.com.